The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience. Because this isn't just your story, this is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us on this Tuesday evening. We're just going to get right to it tonight because this is very exciting, and I felt like I found a bit of a kinship with our guest tonight when we had Morgan on my show a few months back, and we started talking about intention and what we can do with it, and the entities that we could meet with it. And I just found that speaking with somebody basically speaking the same language as I was very exciting, and it was really cool. And since then, I was lucky enough to be a guest on Morgan Knudsen's podcast that she co-hosts and co-created, Supernatural Circumstances podcast. And Morgan does a lot of stuff, okay? We're not going to get to everything that Morgan does, but like I said, she's co-creator and co-host at Supernatural Circumstances podcast. She is co-founder, guest professor, television host, producer, Morgan Knudsen, entity seeker, paranormal research and teachings. You know, we're going to get more during the program what she does because she does so much. But what I wanted to talk about tonight, when we were doing Supernatural Circumstances, we talked about, or Morgan talked about her experiences coming face to face with Dogman. And I've never spoken about Dogman on the program before. To be honest, you know, I've heard of this entity. I've never actually done a whole lot of research into it. And this is going to be, I think, and Morgan, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think this is going to be one of those conversations where we talk about, a lot of people consider Dogman as a cryptid, and people like you and I, even though I've not seen Dogman myself, we'll see it very differently. And Morgan, thank you. Welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Oh, it's always my pleasure. I can't wait to have this conversation. Like you were saying, I mean, we started this back on the other show, and I've been looking forward to it ever since.
Well, that's great, and I appreciate that very much. And that was the thing, right, is that, you know, we're not going to go down my experience again because I talk about it quite a bit. Just the highlights, though, is that the ability to use, to think of everything as energy, to take your intention, turn that into energy, good intentions, that is, and being able to create, if you will, even like a relationship with entities that and this is only me speaking, I'm not speaking for Morgan, that I see so many people put into a category of like a cryptid or basically out of bounds. And the idea, Morgan, to me, is that this is much more accessible than I think people realize.
Oh gosh, yes. And I think one of the big takeaways that if people don't hear anything else today in this show is that the human race has a tendency to categorize everything, and we categorize into physical or non-physical, and you are either one or you are the other. And if you delve into parapsychology, I mean, I've been doing this for over 20 years, I think you begin to understand very clearly that there is no line. And I mean, we talk about, we end our podcast on Supernatural Circumstances with the line, there is no line between the natural and the supernatural. And there really isn't. We're all non-physical as well. We just tend to translate our world in a way that seems very physical. But I think every scientist will tell you, if you look under a microscope, nothing is really solid. And that goes for us as well. We're non-physical on so many levels, far more levels than we are physical. And I think when we look at these creatures, these cryptids, and we think, well, is it a spirit or is it a physical entity? Well, where's the line? And I think when we can look at this as a spectrum, a lot of the stuff that people are experiencing will make a whole lot more sense.
I think one thing that you just said there really hits on, I think, a lot of things, and that is the ability to not look, just because something looks like an animal doesn't mean, and even that I'm going to backtrack on. Yes, something looks like an animal, but if you're close to a dog, or if you're close to a snake, or you're close to a cat, and you see them for more than what they are, just as you hope that, if you're in a relationship with someone, they see you for more than you are. To be able just to look at something like like Dogman or Bigfoot or whatever and be like, oh, well, they're just animals. They're just this. And I think that's something that I really think that you just hit upon that's super important is that don't assume anything. And especially when it's pseudoscience, that there shouldn't be any absolutes. And those absolutes, I think, is what holds a lot of these researchers back, in my opinion.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I think that attends to all fields where people want to put things within a label. They want to have something where they can stick something in a box, and then that box makes sense to them. And it's a very human thing to do. We all like to do it. We're very physically focused beings.
Yeah.
But it's exactly like what you said, where when you can remove the label, the philosopher Eckhart Tolle talks about this quite a bit in order to bring yourself more into the present moment. One of the ways that he recommends to do that is to actually take the label off of what you're looking at. Go into the woods and look at the trees, not label them as trees. Just look at what this is. This is a living being. And I think that really transcends a lot, where if you can just sort of remove that category and say, wait a minute, this is something that is conscious. It is looking back at me. It can see me. It's having thoughts. It's thinking. So, I mean, if you can understand that, and understand that there's an individual in there, no matter what they look like, the outside, doesn't really matter, but there's something in there. I think it behooves everybody in this field to take that approach.
Boy, it's deep, in a sense of, if we all use those lenses, how differently the world would be treated, right? But we won't go down that hole today, at least. But and I mean, I'm sure you've had this on your podcast, and I have it on the show, and everyone have a right to their opinion and stuff. It really does, though. It frustrates me when, even not talking about cryptids, but talking about like ghosts and stuff, and talk about absolute, and how certain things, it is well known that ghosts only do this. It's well known that orbs only do that, or whatever else. And I think, once again, I wish that people would think that, I don't think we're in the position as us in our meat sacks here to be able to have an absolute opinion on anything, to be perfectly honest.
No, I completely agree. I mean, that's the one thing, people that ask me, well, what do you know for sure in this field? Nothing. The answer is nothing. And the more that you go down this rabbit hole, the less you know. And it just, the sort of the age-old question, well, tell me what you think you know so much about. Nothing. And I mean, and it's a great place to be. I know that's something that freaks a lot of people out, is that, well, what do you mean I don't know what I'm looking at, and I don't know what, but this is a really magical place to stand, where you can say, I think I got a bit of a bead on generally what's going on, but to be able to stand in a place of, wow, I don't know, really promotes this sense of curiosity about our environment. We can either choose to have to take on this world from a place of fear, oh my God, I don't know what this is, or we can turn around and say, wait a minute, this is a great place to stand. I don't know. Well, what an adventure that is.
Oh gosh, right. I mean, and that's just it. And that's, and for those who don't think in those realms, think back to when you got into this field or any type of research and that excitement that you had. Do you still have that? Because if you don't have that, there's more likely than a chance that you need to kind of rekindle that fire, I think, and change that. So before we get into your personal experience with Dogman, what is Dogman?
There's been a lot of contention over that in terms of, number one, what is it and where does it come from? And when we delve back within Canadian history specifically, there's a very deep history in regards to where these things come from, what they are, and the fact that they've got a deep tradition, a long-standing tradition with the First Nations people here in Canada. So there's, of course, a lot of people say, well, this is just an animal, and that clearly isn't the case, because evolutionary-wise, this doesn't make any sense.
True.
So I think that's just off the table at this point, just biologically speaking. So when you delve back into some of the Canadian First Nations history, there's many tales of when the settlers first showed up in Canada, where the Indigenous people in Alberta and BC and whatnot had said to these settlers, look, there's this other tribe basically that's out there, leave them alone. Don't bother them. These are trading partners. And many of them described them the same way, which was highly, highly intelligent. Don't speak a word of human English. It's all dog noises and grunts and growls and barks. But that they were very integrated within society for the most part. And that seems to have taken a back seat, of course, when colonization happened and everything got very much uprooted. In Canada, there was a lot of killing of wildlife, like bison, buffalo, things like that. Not a good time to be around. And, so you had all of this nature that was very much impacted by this massive disruption in the environment. And from what I've come to understand, and as we talked about before, I definitely don't proclaim to know this for 100% fact, but what I've come to understand is that you've got these beings, whether you want to call them spirits or interdimensional, whatever it is. Yeah. But these beings and these intelligences that exist in the environment that are very active, they're very real. They've very much been demonized by the media, which seems to be what our media does now. Is that's their job, is to make everybody terrified of things. They've really taken a back seat, and we get little glimpses of them along the way and throughout history all over the world. This isn't just a Canadian thing. This is, of course, very famous cases in America, like the Beast of Bray Road and the Michigan Dogman and things like that. But all the way over into Europe and Egypt and places where these figures are appearing. So my understanding, as little as it is that these are just intelligent beings, label them whatever you want, that lost their connection with people. And ever since then, I think it's been a very deep struggle for them. And the media is anybody that's watching is gonna hate me by the end of this interview, but they have not done these creatures, whether it be Bigfoot or or like Dogman or anything like this, a service at all in portraying them on in media. I have not found these creatures to be dangerous or angry or any of that.
No, that's a whole other conversation that we can talk about someday, because you're absolutely right about that. And it gets very frustrating, especially on the shows when, if they're looking for Bigfoot, they're hunting Bigfoot, and that's you're not going to get anything that way at all. I want to do this. I'm going to take an early break here, because I want to after we come back, I want to delve into Morgan's experience, and I want to give that the time that it deserves and really get into what happened to Morgan when she saw Dogman. Exciting stuff. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. What you wear is important. It should be fun, creative, and expressive of your own personality. At Grady Gear Company, we believe that clothing is more than just fabric and threads. It's a form of self-expression and a way to stand out from the crowd. Grady Gear is more than just a clothing brand. We're a community. We're here to inspire and motivate you to embrace your true self. We are a locally owned small business who do custom clothing orders too. Find us at GradyGearCompany.com. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
And welcome back to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Boy, I've been waiting for this conversation for a while, and this is really, I think for a lot of people, it's going to be either eye-opening or just kind of like what we've been talking about on this program now for over a year about personally my beliefs on cryptids, and I don't even consider them cryptids anymore, but to be able for people to understand what we're talking about. I am very happy to have co-creator and co-host of Supernatural Circumstances, Morgan Knudsen, on the program tonight. We are talking about her experiences that she was able to come face to face with Dogman. And I want to be able to talk about and hear her story of what that was like and what happened to her. And, once again, what really drew me to this story and her experiences was me having something very similar happen a number of times as well. So once again, I really appreciate being able to hear different sides of the coin, if you will, on this. So Morgan, why don't we just talk about your experience and what happened being able to see Dogman?
Yeah, this was an unexpected turn in a very long career of parapsychology. And for those who aren't familiar with parapsychology, it is the scientific study of the paranormal and the looking at consciousness from a academic perspective as well as field work. And so I was very much enthralled in the world of psychokinesis and hauntings and psi and this type of thing. Not so much into the world of cryptids, which was something that I always loved, but it was just not my field of study, or so I thought. And this was a big learning curve for me because I had to come to the realization that every single thing is connected together. It's not one thing or another thing. And this was one of my biggest lessons, I think, in understanding that. I got a call years and years ago from a lady living out in basically in the sticks of Alberta, who said that there was sightings of this upright canid who had come so close to the house. It was actually in the back of her husband's truck at one point. He had gone out and it surprised him in the back of his truck. And it surprised me because Alberta, for those of you who are listening, it's a massive, massive province. It's got every terrain imaginable. So we've got a lot of Sasquatch sightings here. We're a hotbed of paranormal stuff, UFOs, everything. So it didn't entirely surprise me, but at the same time, it was something I did not expect to encounter. And the more research that I did into this particular case, and the more time that I spent in this large area of Alberta, I began to realize that the encounters were not lone encounters, that people all over the area were having these things happen, and they were seeing these creatures, and they were coming into the property. And for people who are wondering, well, why don't we hear about this? Canada has a very specific culture about the paranormal. They don't report stuff. They don't talk about it, specifically in the West. Unless you approach them, odds are they are not going to tell you things that have happened. It's just, you don't talk about that. So it wasn't a surprise to me that this was sort of a hidden sort of back world of rural Alberta. So anyway, as this went along and we realized, what was going on. I mean, I've held workshops and stuff like that for my whole life. And I thought, well, what a great opportunity to be able to start to educate people about cryptids, about tracks, about all of these different things, because these things were happening on a pretty regular basis. And what I ended up uncovering over a good number of weeks, myself and a number of other researchers here, was that every time that we went out, first of all, we would start with a traditional smudge. My colleagues are Indigenous, they're Métis, and we would start with a traditional ritual of gratitude. And many people think that, okay, well, a smudge must mean you're warding off evil. Well, no, it's not actually how they present it. It's a giving back. It's a thank you, gratitude ritual. So we would very much get into that feeling place, like you were mentioning, intention of giving thanks. Thank you for allowing us to experience whatever we're going to experience. No pressure on anything, but thank you for allowing us to be here. And we found that every single time that we went out, there was some semblance of encounter with these. And we would usually start out by seeing these bright eyes in the bush. And they would be very, very curious to the point where they would stand up on 2 feet. So you'd see the eyes all of a sudden raise about 5 more feet in the air from where they were before. Yeah. Very tall, very huge, and but incredibly inquisitive. And they would follow the workshop groups to the point where the people at the workshops would see them. And were blown away because of course, you're never expecting to see anything on, anything like this. And, it became a lesson for me where I thought, okay, well, where's the line here where they don't want to be seen versus they're looking for that interaction. And the one night that was absolutely life-changing for me, and we had seen sort of glimpses of them back and forth in these wooded areas, because we were very dense wooded areas in Alberta with trails, lots of trails. And the one night we heard a coyote pack on the other side of the highway. And we learned really, really quick that coyote is a favorite food. We'd find coyotes' carcasses in trees and ripped up and all sorts of stuff, like lots of tracks and claw marks up trees that clearly weren't bear. There's something else. At one point we found a trail cam that had been picked up off the picked up off the tree itself and looked at and partly broken
Wow.
and then put back on the tree.
Oh, that's
Like,
nice. That's nice
yeah,
of them.
like, what is this thing, right? And then it was covered in mud, like from a great big paw, and there was tracks at the bottom of the tree. So all these are very, very curious, like what is this? What is going on? And so the one night, as I say, we're listening and we're hearing these coyotes, and the coyotes here have a very specific yell when these things are in the area. It's very distinct. It's almost like they have their own word for Dogman. Like, these clearly are one of the apex predators in the area.
Sure.
And these things, they started to lose it. And we heard branches snapping close to us, and it let out one of them let out with a howl that was so deep and so long. I mean, anybody that's heard a Dogman howl, it's not a coyote, it's not a wolf. It is so long,
Wow.
it's so deep, it's complete different tone. And the coyotes blew up. And all of a sudden we heard these things just take off running. So we thought, okay, it's time to shut things down and go in. We don't want to mess with this. And because clearly they're hungry. So as we were coming back, it was about an hour or so later that we came back down this one trail, and all of a sudden we saw the eyes pop up again. I guess they had been done with their coyote venture and whatnot. We saw these eyes, and I thought that's very interesting that they came back. There's no reason really for them to have come back. And I saw the one which we saw most often staring at the group, and just intense staring. And there was two others, one to either side of him, and you could see the eyes kind of almost like they were flanking him. I think like a protection thing. And but this one was staring, and I thought, we've invited him here, and I'm going to just start talking. I don't know what to do, but I'm going to start talking. And I did, and I started talking to him in the same way that I would talk to my little snake Galen, just encouraging, soft-spoken, because I thought, how would I want to be spoken to if I was approaching a group that I was so nervous? And it was clear to me that he was nervous. Even you've got this massive creature, he was nervous. And so I kind of stepped forward and I said, thank you so much for coming today. Thank you so much. You are so beautiful. And lo and behold, within a few minutes, he stood up. And you could see because the eyes raised, and we started seeing the eyes kind of doing this swinging motion. And the people that were with us were going, well, what the hell is that? What's going on?
Yeah.
And we realized, well, the swinging motion was because he was walking. He was coming towards us. And the closer he got, the light that was emanating from his eyes, it was so bright, just crystal clear, was lighting his face. It was lighting the bridge of his nose and the ears and the top of his snout. And it was one of the most beautiful faces I've ever seen. People say, well, what do they look like? Are these ferocious gargoyles that people see on TV? No, you picture the most beautiful timber wolf you've ever seen. And that's the face of Dogman. It's just stunning. And he got so close, and I thought, well, I said, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if he's going to come out of the woods. That's the way it looked. And I just thought, no, I'm just going to stay here and be peaceful and just allow him to be here. And then within a few minutes of that, he seemed to get relatively close to us. There was a dog on another property that started to bark, and it spooked him. And he immediately turned his head, and the other two turned their heads, and they just took off. And you could hear these just bipedal creatures just thump through the woods. Yeah. And it was so special because I knew I didn't understand the history of these guys at that point in time, but I did understand that we had something that could be anywhere at any point, and it chose to be there. And it's like, at that point, it was like this. Not only do they want connection and communication, they are trying to the best of their ability to have that connection and communication. And they're lost about it a little bit because they don't know what to do.
And I think kindness.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would suspect that most people who would see something like that would either scream or make a deal out of it, and you didn't. But you also took it the other way with pure kindness as well. and love.
Yeah. And then that was something that was really important for me. And I think that partly because, interestingly enough, I've most of my life I've had reptiles, and they are one of the most intelligent beings that you can have a relationship with. And that reaction I have seen from so many people that has been so unjustified and so uncaring to some of these kind little souls, because they don't have fur, or they don't, people have this preconceived notion about what this is because it's different. And I thought, no, that's just not the way to do this. It's like, if you again, it was that realizing this being is looking back at me. It's looking at me. He's thinking about, what do I do here? And the only thing next to do was to offer that connection. And I think that's one of the things, like Greg, you were mentioning at the beginning of this, is people that are out, hunting for Bigfoot or hunting. It's like, what do you expect them to do with that intention?
Right. Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Really. I mean, if you set out and some other being was like, I'm gonna go hunt Greg today. What are you supposed to do with that?
Right.
Like, what do you? And that's really, really, really key. And it's just the ability to just allow. Because as soon as you're hunting for something, first of all, you're in the wrong energy anyway, because you're looking for something, you're not going to find it. This is really about, right back to the beginning of this, is about being present.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing too, these programs, I would throw out there that these programs these people, they might have at one point wanted to find Bigfoot or something, but being attached to a network generally means that you're no longer in control anyway, and that there's a reason for shows to entertain. So it's not entertaining if you're just like, come on out, we love you. I mean, they're going to want to see, and I don't think rightly, they want to see more than that. And that's incredible. I was going to ask you, one of the things that we have talked about between our stories is eyeshine. Eyeshine is something very present in both our stories here. Have you ever given any thought if that is possibly a hallmark to being interdimensional?
Yeah, and you're right. It's in so many of these types of encounters, and I think it's a little bit more than that. I think it is them gently showing themselves to us, because I've been also in situations. I've had many encounters with these creatures since that incident, and what I've come to understand is it's almost like a look, I'm here, but it's a very cautious little wave, little nod.
Sure.
I think again, it sort of comes back to that idea that these are somewhat spiritual beings, more so on the continuum than we are. And I think when you've got that type of an interaction that's going on, their interaction is going to look different than what it would if we were interacting with an animal. But so I think it is a way of connection. I think it is an introduction, if they can, to see how they're going to be received. Because I mean, pretty quick if somebody sees the eyeshine and runs screaming, that maybe that's not such a good person to be interacting with, but every encounter, I would say 95% of the encounters that I've had with these creatures have begun with the eyeshine, and it seems to be some sort of a bit of a greeting.
It does. It sounds like, kind of, in a way, it's kind of like, okay, my eyes, it's your move. What are you going to do with that? And I can judge you. I can figure out what kind of person you are based on that. Very interesting.
Yeah, and I think as well, and just to clarify for the audience, because most of the time when people, especially hunters, think of eyeshine, they think of light refraction in a pupil, and this is not. This is a light that seems to be emanating from the being itself. It's because I used to be one of these people where I would hear these stories and they would say, no, the eyes are glowing, and I would think, no, this is eye shine. This is a natural occurring thing within the pupil of an animal, the lens of an animal's eye. And this is not that. It is very different. It is like a very specific glow, which I think again lends to that intentionality. I don't think it has to be there, but it's a really great way to say, hey, I'm here and I'm watching. Now what?
Absolutely. And yeah, once again, it's not like a cat that you shine some light on, it reflects. This is a completely different thing, especially as you had said with your experience that you had just told, that it actually illuminated their face. Makes a big difference.
Yeah, very clearly. And interestingly, what we've found with there's been 4 that we've been able to identify, and specifically with eye color. Not all were the same eye color. We had one that it was like a red. We've had one that's an amber color. We've had 1 and 2 that have been that sort of beautiful, sort of Christmassy off-white, Christmas light color. And so even in that, there's some identification ability to say, okay, well, the smaller one that we've seen has the amber eyes, and so you can begin to start to look at behaviors a little bit more and them as individuals and whatnot. But it's I think it's something that they are doing on purpose. I don't think it's like oops, I accidentally saw them.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead, take our next break. So many questions left. Want to talk about other interactions as well. And I just have some questions about correlation between our experiences as well. So much to get through. It was very, very fun to talk about this. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
Reach your highest level of consciousness and well-being with MetamorphosisConnections.com. MetamorphosisConnections.com is an online directory of the best holistic and metaphysical practitioners to help you make your most informed choices. You can search MetamorphosisConnections.com for classes, events, wellness and life coaches, plus metaphysical products and shops. You can also search for a wide array of healers from all modalities, including EFT, sound healing, energy healing, light therapy, ancestral healing, shamanic healing, reflexology, past life regressions, hypnotherapy, yoga, and more. And if you're not sure where to start, the search feature on MetamorphosisConnections.com is tailored to help both those who know what they are looking for and those who are just starting. Come explore the possibilities for your higher self by visiting MetamorphosisConnections.com. Their experienced practitioners can guide both beginners and those that are already on their spiritual journey. That's MetamorphosisConnection.com, your link to direct you on your spiritual transformation.
Lilliput in Coon Rapids dares you to take part in their Haunted Mansion escape room. 100 years ago, a family suffered a tragic incident. Your team is brought in to find out what happened that night, find proof of the supernatural, and help the spirits find peace. Are you up for the task? This incredible escape room is filling up fast, so book now. Also, a perfect outing for work team building. Go to lilliput.net now to book your experience today. Greg Bakun here. Like many of you, I still collect physical books, and not just any books, but books about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. I go to Megas Books and Herbs, located in the Arts District of Minneapolis, but books are only part of it. Megas Books and Herbs offers crystals, jewelry, herbs, oils, and consultations on how to use this stuff. Check out their in-store classes and events too. This place has everything to expand your horizons. Located at 1848 Central Avenue, Minneapolis, or visit megasbooks.com.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. Recently, I had a large order of custom designed t-shirts that needed to be turned around in a hurry. I knew exactly who to call. Grady Gear Company. Grady Gear Company is a local company that handles large and small custom clothing and apparel orders. I had a lot of questions from color, shirt quality, and what sizes we needed. Grady Gear Company was great to work with. They got us what we needed on time, and now everybody's looking great around the station in their new gear. Start your order at GradyGearCo.com.
Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered. and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville. And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio. We see the return of psychic medium Refined Divine, and she's going to be live doing one-question readings. Once again, you can call in, write in if you have questions about relationships, money, jobs. Don't forget, she can channel as well. These are always a lot of fun. Not to be taken too heavy. We don't want to be bogged down by politics or anything like that. Or we just want to, if you have a question, we want to be able to help. And, well, we meaning her. She's going to be on tomorrow, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Also, I want to remind everyone, tomorrow is the date. Come on out to Billy's in Anoka for Ghost Stories and Beyond. Char Savoy and myself will be out there to share our paranormal experiences, but we want to hear yours as well. Come on out there, share what's going on. If you have something that's bothering you even, maybe we can all help, or you just want to tell us some stories about growing up in a haunted house. You're more than welcome to do that as well. And the best part of it all, burgers are half price. So come on out to Billy's in Anoka and join us for Ghost Stories and Beyond. Then this Saturday, come on out to see me at the Charvinity Psychic and Healing Fair at the Doubletree by Hilton, Minneapolis Airport. I'll have a table set up there, so come by and say hi. Plus, I'll be speaking at 3 p.m. on Saturday with my panel, funny enough, called Careful About What You Wish For. Be aware of when you're setting intentions. To get more details on the fair, plus all the vendors who are going to be there, go to charvinityfairs.com. We are finishing up our tremendous conversation with Morgan Knudsen. We've been talking about her experiences with her encounters with Dogman, and we're going to talk about other encounters as well. But my question to you, because I had mentioned this to you before, and I don't know if this is just something that I hadn't noticed. I would suspect it's different all the other times. When you've had these type of encounters, have you ever noticed anything that's kind of like elementals kind of preceding it, or anything that because in my case, and I've mentioned before how I feel like that we had seen elementals kind of around the area to start with, even the night before our first encounter. I'm wondering if you've encountered anything like that.
Yeah, I would not directly here. I would say often there will be a feeling of almost like electric charge in the air that I felt prior to the encounters, which is interesting.
Yeah.
As well as a remarkable silence that hits. And it's not just, I mean, oftentimes when there's a predator in the area, many people who spend a lot of time in the woods know that, of course, all animals go dead silent when there's a predator in the woods. But this is a little bit different. It almost is like somebody's hit the mute button on the environment. Some of the locations that they've been seen, they can be close to a road or something like that. I mean, we've got a lot of prairie, back road areas here in Alberta. And the silence is so complete that you don't even hear a vehicle. And I've never, ever heard that anywhere else. I mean, I've lived out here most of my life, apart from living in Vancouver for a while. And it is such a complete silence. And I don't know what that is. But it's like the whole world just comes to a peaceful silence. And it precedes the encounters, I would say 99% of the time.
That's incredible, and what an experience. When you've had other encounters, have they all been with not only Dogman but the same Dogman, or has been others? What have you experienced?
It seems to be the same ones. We've been able to identify 4 specifically that seem to show up on a regular in a few different areas. They aren't where they started out when we first started to see them. They seem to they seem to be able to migrate around a little bit, and many times the properties in which they seem to gravitate towards are either reserve land or traditional lands that I think are familiar to them. And so it's been very interesting to see where they go per season. They seem to have certain places that they enjoy and they like. But it's been interesting. Some of the other encounters that we've had, like you were saying, Greg, we talked about this before, where it seems like these certain areas are that they do gravitate to certain areas, but it's not so much a matter of looking for them, but rather setting the intention and allowing them to show up. I think we don't give these beings near enough credit. We think that it's just, we're gonna go hunt that dumb animal in the bush.
Yeah,
you're not gonna find them, and these things they're so intuitive. They're so tuned in. I mean, we can only kind of hope to be as tuned in, I think, as they are, but they are so tuned in that if they don't want to be there, they won't be there. And it won't matter how many times you go looking. So I think, all of the encounters that I've had have been centered around that intention, and just sort of proceed in the same way that the other ones have, which is that silence, being present, all of those things. And it's quite something, but there is a pattern to what they do.
What is that pattern then? Are you just as far as how your interaction with them, is that what you're saying? Or
yeah, I mean, definitely there are interactions with them, but also I think just areas that they seem to like.
I see what you're saying.
That they seem to that they seem to gravitate to specifically, and like I was saying, often traditional land. I think it's somewhere where they feel safe. It's areas where when you do look back in history, that they had good interactions with people. They seem to hang around places where interactions have been positive. So that's an interesting aspect of this as well, that I think people don't quite understand. Like when you look into the history of Dogman and people's encounters with them, more often than not, it's people either stumbling into them, which results in maybe a fearful encounter. The Dogman's surprised, they're growling. You've got the person who's freaking out, so the Dogman's growling more because now you've got somebody who's freaking out, and so I think they tend to gravitate, I think, to where they're feeling safe and peaceful, and I think that goes to humans as well. They're going to gravitate to the people who are showing them kindness, just like anyone, any person, any animal, anything like that. So people, I think, need to take a responsibility in their encounters with these things, which is something I just want to quickly touch on.
Sure. When
you hear people saying, I had this encounter, the Dogman snarled at me, I was terrified, the thing was going to eat me. Well, number one, how much of that is your own fear and perception? And number two, what you bring to the table with any animal, I don't care whether it's your dog, your cat, the neighbors, whatever energy you are bringing to the table is being continuously read by whoever is in the room with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you want to be surefire bitten by a neighbor's dog, go in there and be frightened.
Yeah.
You're going to get growled at. Sorry. I don't care whether it's a Shih Tzu or whether it's a Rottie, you're going to get growled. They're looking for that energy. And these things are not aggressive. They are defensive occasionally with growls and trying to run away.
Yeah.
But they are not aggressive. And I think it's something that people need to understand. What you are bringing to the table is determining the type of encounter that you're having every time.
100%. Now, you're not currently in Canada, right?
I am.
Okay,
I'm currently in Edmonton. Yes.
Okay. All right. So there go. My question to you was, I was wondering if you had or thought about being somewhere else, not near the area where you've had your encounters, and set the intention for a particular, for all four of them or particular one to come and see you, as finding a same sort of safe place, but not in the area. Because I mean, I've heard people saying, I can't say that this has necessarily happened for me, but that you can call forth the same ones that you've had experiences with before.
Yeah, I believe that. I absolutely believe that. Interestingly, my house backs onto woods, and ever since I have had these encounters and I mean, these encounters, and I'm talking like sometimes up to 2 hours away, we have to drive in order to get to some of these locations. They're very remote. And I have had encounters very close to home with what seem to be the same ones.
Yeah.
So I think that connection is, again, it's something that is, I guess there's certain cultures that believe that, you kind of have a predisposition to bond with some of these things. And we talked about that a little bit on supernatural circumstances.
Yep.
But I think, I don't think it's necessarily that people are, special one way or the other, but I think the people that take that time and are willing to have that connection are a draw for them. And I think they will pursue that relationship because it's something that they had. And again, going back to the beginning of this, you look back at these histories, throughout the world, they had a very good relationship with people at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, so if you're offering that energy again, I think they are willing to and want to continue that. But we've got to clean up our own acts. We got to clean up our own energy and how we're perceiving things and stop listening to the television.
I totally agree. We have under 2 minutes left. I want to ask you your thoughts on trying to capture evidence of these of Dogman, Bigfoot, or whatever else, bringing cameras and trying to capture it opposed to being in the moment.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think that's one mistake people make, is that they go out there thinking they're going to get these things on camera. And one thing that we learned in parapsychology very early on and have come to understand in parapsychology is that the camera only sees what you see. It doesn't have any special ability to see something that the human eye can't see. So what you get on camera when it comes to a ghost photo, or it comes to something like Dogman or anything like that, is that image is being imprinted deliberately on the camera. If you don't see it, the camera cannot see it. So, the photos that I've got, and I've mentioned this before, they stay with me because I believe that's a gift. And I think if you are given a photo, you are given the photo. It's not that you caught the photo, you are given the photo. And I think it's very important for people to understand that. So you're going out there looking to exploit this, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. You have to go out with intention and just be in the moment. Go for the experience.
That was something I learned too. I don't, like you, I wasn't really a big follower of cryptozoology anyway, so it wasn't like I was out there trying to get something, but the idea of living in the moment is 100% on there. Morgan, how can people find Supernatural Circumstances podcasts?
Oh gosh, so that it is everywhere. You guys podcast everywhere you get great podcasts. Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, you can subscribe there. And Greg is our guest coming up this coming Monday. And you can hear the rest of this conversation this coming Monday. So definitely hit that subscribe button and don't miss it. It's an incredible discussion that we had about his encounters with Sasquatch and intention and all of those things. So I'm so looking forward for people to hear that.
Awesome. Morgan, thank you so very much. Such a great conversation. We'll be back tomorrow with Refined Divine. Everyone have a fantastic night, and we'll see you tomorrow.